I want you to change the world, and don't think that this is going to happen peacefully or you can do it alone. We need to kill the rich. You get out there, you use your weapons, and you rip Washington apart. You hunt down the billionaires, the bank bosses, the CEOs, the scumbags, and the liars, the governors, the lobbyists, the senators, because they're all the same, and you hang them.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is January 5th, 2021. I'm Eric. Hope everyone is doing well this 5th day of the year. So, yesterday I said in my video that if a couple of my subscribers expressed interest in a more detailed video, or should I say in a more detailed video regarding guerrilla warfare and some ideas of, well, how we can implement these tactics. So let us start by defining guerrilla warfare. According to whoever wrote this up on Wikipedia, and believe me, they're no good. They're not the greatest source in the world for a lot of things, but this basic definition is adequate. Guerrilla warfare is a form of irregular warfare in which small groups of combatants, such as paramilitary personnel, armed civilians, or irregulars, use military tactics, including ambushes, sabotage, raids, petty warfare, hit-and-run tactics, in order to fight and defeat a larger traditional force. But times have changed, and we will look at modern tactics that we can use, in some part anyway. So, before we get into the tactics here, let's look at this. This comes from Robert Longley in 2019, so it's a fairly recent article. Guerrilla warfare is waged by civilians most of the time, and they are usually not members of a traditional military unit, such as a nation's standing army or police forces. Now, one of the reasons it's useful to not use textbook, let me call them, textbook tactics and maneuvers is because they're familiar to the opposition, them being the enforcement class in our case. So, keep this in mind. The police force would be the standing army in our situation, and they have specific textbook tactics, especially at the special operations and SWAT team units. So, in many cases, guerrilla combatants are fighting to overthrow or weaken a ruling government or regime. And sometimes the ruling government can be halfway fair, I guess you could say. But for one reason or another, the people want to see that government gone. And I can think of many examples of why we would want our current government gone and completely stripped down to almost nothing, if not completely removed out of the picture. It's hard to imagine a world like that, but it is possible. If people work together in a cooperative manner, there's nothing we can't accomplish. Okay? People are always saying that, there's no way the militias or the civilian population can take on the government and win. Well, this is simply not the case. They're seeing it from the point of view of army against army, and this is where the guerrilla comes into play. So, this type of warfare is typified by sabotage, ambushes, surprise raids, and on unsuspecting military targets, often fighting in their homeland. We would use our familiarity with our local landscape to overcome, say, let's just say a Chinese invasion occurred. They would have a really, really hard time here. And the reason is, what'd that guy say? There's a rifle behind every blade of grass in the United States. They would have a very difficult time. And they would end up losing. Definitely. Okay? So, what's the difference between a guerrilla or guerrilla warfare and terrorism? Now, each applies some of the same tactics, such as, and use the same weapons. Okay? There are important differences, though, between a guerrilla fighter and a terrorist. Now, a terrorist doesn't usually attack defended targets, well-defended targets. They prefer soft civilian targets where they can enjoy unfettered death, as many bodies as possible, without the worry of the people defending themselves adequately. That's what a terrorist does. It's kind of like the state. They imply apply many terrorist tactics. The police, they will attack a soft target, and before they attack a well-armed, well-informed, and highly motivated citizen. So, your government employs many terroristic tactics on us, the population. So that's the key difference. The guerrilla fighter will attack defended military targets. So, they're not cowardly like the police and terrorists, which really they are one and the same. It's, in my opinion, police is just another word for terrorist. And a lot of people would disagree with that, but anyone that's been with my channel for a while now knows that I go and find crimes committed by police on the Free Thought Project and a couple of other websites, and it really does show the reality of policing in America. And not just America, but since we're mostly American in this, American viewers on this channel, we'll just go with American. Unlike terrorists, guerrilla fighters rarely attack civilians. In contrast to terrorists, guerrillas move and fight as paramilitary units with the objective of seizing territory and enemy equipment. And in our case, as American guerrillas, really our objective should be capturing equipment and sabotaging infrastructure. Capturing equipment and sabotaging infrastructure. Now we're getting into the different tactics. And I'm probably going to have to do a series of videos because I can't possibly fit in, the limitless tactics that can be employed by the American guerrilla. So, let's say, and by the way, before I even get started in the tactics, for the sake of clarity, for any government asshole that might listen to this or find it, or perhaps somebody else who sees it turns it over to the authorities because they're alarmed by what I'm saying. I want to make it clear that I'm not telling anybody to do anything, okay? This is simply a thought exercise of what a guerrilla warfare in the United States might or should look like. I'm not telling anybody to harm anyone else, okay? Let's just get that out of the way right now. Alright, so let's say, how do you become a guerrilla? How would that happen? Alright, let's say these bureaucrats and politicians, like Anthony Fauci and anybody who wants to force a shot on the public. Let's say they get together little mini units of social worker, a cop, and some kind of medical professional, like a nurse or a nurse's aide, and a National Guards guy. That's what the little groups consist of. And there's, many of these groups. And they have taken on the task of going door to door. And I'm not talking about just one of these groups, but many of these groups in many different locations. But let's say that they have these groups and they're going door to door, and there's a couple groups to assigned to specific neighborhoods, and they go from house to house, splitting up into two groups. Alright? And let's say you tell them through the door to go fuck themselves. You're not taking their shot, and to get out of here. And the officer and National Guard guy begin to apply pressure. And if you don't cooperate, you're going to end up dead, right? Or your family might get gunned down by the guardsman and the officer. It's a possibility. In this situation, before they reach to the point where they're through the door, there's some things a person can do to make it possible to defeat, with a fair amount of ease, the people at your home. But you got to do it before they're breaching the door. Okay? What do you think you can do? And remember, one way or another, you're getting the shot, or you're leaving in a body bag, or you're being captured and taken to a camp. So these are your reasons for defending yourself. Okay? So you have 4 or 5 people at your door, at least 2 of which are heavily armed, and they want to get their way into your home. What can you do to make them back off? Well, was this going to work or what? Alright. One thing a person can do is have a whole bunch of these stashed in their house. Whole bunch. And there are some modifications that one can do to make it a volatile item. So you have these things, and you start. I mean, you know that you're gonna have to leave where you're at after this. Okay, so you start throwing these things out the windows, and you have these guys surrounded by these. They will most definitely shift their attention to this item. When they do, a person could walk around, go out the back door, walk around to where they're, on the side, looking at the individuals on the porch. While one person is tossing these out, the other person should be making their way to the front. And when the individuals on your porch pay attention to this, that's when you open fire. That's when you open fire. A lot of people might say that harming the social worker and medical personnel is immoral. But keep in mind that these individuals, the medical personnel, is using a chemical weapon on you. Just because they don't have a gun, or maybe they do, but just because they're a social worker or medical professional doesn't mean they're not combatants in this war, because they are combatants. The social worker's a psychological combatant, right? And so, in my humble opinion, that would make them fair game. The same with the medical personnel, only they are directly involved with the killing of the citizen. So, those people should not get any mercy. None. Whatsoever. And this is one of the reasons why you should have a bug out bag ready to go. Because after such an incident takes place, you'll have a couple of choices. You'll have the choice to either surrender, and you know what the outcome of that surrender is going to be. It will be, more than likely, be your death. Right? Or perhaps made to toil in some kind of factory or mine, which may be a little worse than death. Nonetheless, your family is broken up, your property is seized, you're taken away, blah, 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 right? And so you only have a couple choices. You can surrender, or you can continue. You can continue to engage. And that's when you become the guerrilla fighter. Or how you might become a guerrilla fighter. And it wouldn't be a bad tactic either, because when these things start being thrown out the window, they're going to definitely pay attention to where they are landing, giving the person on the side of the house pretty much a golden opportunity to wipe out that unit, just like that. And this is why they want to disarm the American public, because you got guys like me, among others, thinking about ways in which we would be able to mount an effective resistance to the force being applied with regard to the shots. So that's one tactic right there. Now, we can talk about withdrawing into some sort of forest, wherever you can get to provide you space, cover, and natural resources. You want to have your bug out bags ready to go, because as soon as that event takes place, you will not have very much time to get out of Dodge. A matter of a few minutes. And you will have to figure out, how can I evade these people? And that evasion will be saved for another video. Now the Guerilla, we have modern devices at our disposal, and we can take advantage of some of those. But your basic weapons like this simple combat knife, will be your primary tools. Weapons like this small combat hatchet. It's very sharp and very deadly. And I do recommend that you have more than a single knife, more than a hatchet, because you can use this knife right here, the paracord on it. You can take the paracord off of it, right, and mount this to a large long stick and use it as a spear. Because there are times where you're going to have to be silent as a guerrilla. You're going to have to be silent, and a spear would be a good thing to use to quietly take somebody out. But if you use it as a spear, there's a chance that you might end up losing it, right? Which is why you should have multiple melee weapons on you. Like that. Although this is not my preferred knife. This is. And this is quite a nice knife. It has titanium. It stays sharp. It's very, very sharp. You would not take much effort and to turn someone into a ghost using this. So your primary weapons, while we do have modern devices at our disposal, your primary weapons will be more primitive your firearm, your knives, your machetes. Also, a very effective, quiet tool to take out the guard at the gate, or whoever, right? So, with some of the weapons that you might want to consider, and some other things, one, you might consider having a handful of remote control cars. You might want to have a couple of drones. And you definitely want more than one firearm. I recommend personally an AR, AK-47 type rifle, a shotgun, a handgun, and a more high-powered rifle, bolt action. All of these. One loadout. And I know what you're thinking, that's going to be pretty heavy, but and believe me when I tell you, that weight will be worth it to have these tools at your disposal. Another tool that may be useful to a guerrilla fighter is it's a tree cutting tool. Basically, it's a large slingshot with large bands on it, and it's on a pole. And you can sink this pole to the ground, and you can put, let's say, a bare cable of some sort in it, and you can use that slingshot and that cable to sabotage some kind of electrical infrastructure. Now, again, I'm not telling people to do this. I'm giving examples of what a guerrilla fighter might do. Okay? So I'm going to do multiple videos on this topic. We're just touching the surface in this one and painting sort of a picture of why a person might end up being a guerrilla fighter and what tools they have at their disposal. One weakness that people have, and this is a weakness, is their cell phones. There are other ways a person can communicate that wouldn't make it so easy for the person to be tracked. One of these tools is called Beartooth. And this is where your group can communicate with no grid, no Wi-Fi or internet connection. And you would utilize your cell phone. So in that, you can turn it into a strength. You have many tools on your cell phone that may be useful to you, but it can be tracked. So how can you use your cell phone to your advantage? One of the ways is you can give your cell phone to somebody else that's their specific task is to drive around or move around with a bag full of these cell phones. Maybe you could toss it on a train or the bag, or put it in somebody else's car. That way, the opponent is tracking the wrong thing. So when people tell you that it's not possible for groups of individuals, civilian individuals, to defeat a larger, supposedly all-powerful government, they're speaking out of cowardice and fear. And it could be done. And again, before I end this video, I want to stress the difference between a guerrilla and a terrorist. I want to stress that the only acceptable targets as a moral individual, a guerrilla fighter, are targets that have direct physical impact on you. And it never should be innocent men, women, or children. The target should not be a daycare or a school or anything like that. The target should be the enemy. Okay? And whereas the terrorist will go after unarmed men, women, and children. We see it every day on the streets of America with the police forces. So, as long as a person or group maintains a good moral high ground, you should be able, after a few incidences, to gain public support. So, I'm going to end it with this quote from Che Guevara, I guess is how you say the guy's name. And I know he's a communist bastard, but it doesn't make what he says any less true or said. He said that, why does the guerrilla fighter fight? We must come to the inevitable conclusion that the guerrilla fighter is a social reformer, that he take up arms responding to the angry protests of the people against their oppressors, and that he fights in order to change the social system that keeps all his unarmed brothers in ignominy and misery. And it just so happens that I knew I'd have problems pronouncing that word, and I went ahead and looked it up and listened to how to say it. And that means personal or deep personal humiliation and disgrace. Disgraceful or dishonorable conduct, quality, or action. And I'd say that all of that right there applies to our current situation. Anyway, this is just part one. I will continue forward with the Survival Guide 2021 Guerilla Warfare, and I hope everyone has a great day. Until next time, kill the state, live free.